driving down the road when they called me and said, you need to come back in. You're being investigated for releasing confidential information. And I literally, it's a miracle I didn't crash in that moment. They put you on a list saying you're a liar, and then you can never be a cop again, basically.
Welcome back to Internal Affairs, a police podcast here with the IA guy and today's guest. They're all special. I suppose this guest is more special because she actually flew all the way from the state of Texas. That's God's country, is what I've been told. And what a story. Bridget Truxillo is a police attorney who we're going to get to know a lot as we proceed with this episode. But more important than anything, she used to be a police officer, and I can't wait to tell you the story. But you know what? I'll leave all the details up to her. And without further ado, let's get started. Okay, Code 6. You ever heard Code 6? Do you use codes?
We did use codes, but I don't remember what Code 6 was.
Was it 10? You guys used the 10 codes?
I don't. Wait, 10 codes. Yeah, 10-4, 10-8, 10-6, 10-15, 10-20.
Yeah, we're 10-8. Yeah, Alachua.
Alachua County.
I'm just making sure.
You did it right.
Thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. And for us, Code 6 means at scene. You know, we're here with Bridget. Thank you for coming down. I really appreciate you sharing your story because it's quite interesting to know, and you can attest to this because maybe you probably don't know many police officers that turn attorneys.
No, I do not.
1, 2, attorneys that actually practice police practices.
Correct.
Right? It's very unusual. I can tell you in California, I probably know maybe a handful. Yeah. Only because it's just a different type of practice. So we'll get into that. Well, look, let me start off by asking you about internal affairs because I know you have an IA story to tell me. When you were at Alachua County Sheriff's Office, I got that right, in June of 2000, what was your impression of internal affairs, or what did anyone tell you about IA? Or here you are, you graduate the academy, you're on probation, and you know, and I asked that for the purposes of knowing that we have this stigma that's been in existence for decades, right? So what was that like, or what did you hear when you heard IA back then?
Well, almost nothing. You know, you watch the TV shows, and back at the time, you remember that TV show, The Shield, with Michael Chiklis?
Yes.
That was really popular. Especially it was a narcotics unit in the show, and I was in the narcotics unit, and I mean, the number of times we'd go arrest people, and they'd say, I know what you're like, I watched the show, The Shield, and I would always say, that's why it's called dope, because that's not a smart statement. But it's like, I would say, the way I thought of it was like traffic cops, because traffic cops are always in a bad mood, you know, because people always hate them, and you just never like the IA guys when they show up. And so what I expected it to be was IA guys who just want to tell you to shut up, sit down, tell me your story, don't care, oh, but you don't understand, I don't care about your story, just tell me, and, you know, just shut up and do what I tell you to do. That was what I expected, is just shut up and to answer my questions. Know that, you know, it's like being on the stand. That's not what I said, it's not what I asked you, just answer my question, just being very rigid and mean.
They were evil.
Evil, yeah.
Bad people.
You just expect, because and then you think, not necessarily, as I would say, I've always described myself as being more of a positive Polly than a Debbie Downer, and that's also something I struggled with just being in law enforcement, is because ultimately you see all the downsides of life, and so it's really hard to balance that.
Oh, 100%.
And also when in an IA, I can't imagine, because you do deal with some legitimately bad characters. But sometimes you just got to sift through the story and figure out this is a bad claim, or you made a mistake, but it's not as bad. You know, you're okay. Here's a ding in your file, or you're cleared, or whatever. But you have to do your job. And I understood that the agency, it's a CYA kind of thing. Yeah. But I expected it to not be a pleasant experience if I ever got into the situation, and I was right. I did not have awful investigators. And interestingly, I have no memory whatsoever of who interviewed me when I had the 2 IAs. That is a complete blank. I distinctly remember being told there was an IA against me and come in because I needed to give my statement and thinking, oh my God, I'm going to throw up.
Right. The world is just going to end.
Oh, ending.
I'm going to get fired.
Yes.
Yeah. Isn't that, for
worst.
whatever reason.
It's the worst.
It's the worst. No, totally. Even the most minor violation of policy, you just think to yourself, oh my God, the world's going to end. I definitely feel that sentiment, and I'm sure the audience who's watching and listening can agree with that. Bridget, let me ask you this, though. If you were in a room full of sergeants that are beginning their assignment in internal affairs, what's the one thing you would want them to know about that job? What do you think?
And I never did the job.
Right.
But just being a cop, and I feel like struggling with what I just said about struggling with all the negativity of humankind that you see on a regular basis, but that you must find a way to maintain that you are talking to humans, and that they are highly emotional when they're sitting across from you, whether they're crying or sweating or whatever. And I know those are all signs you have to look for. I didn't do your job, but just as an investigator, you have to look for the signs people are showing. But some of that is just legit. Oh my gosh, you're going to think I'm a liar for the rest of my life just because I'm here. Oh my gosh, I guess I didn't do anything wrong, but you think I'm a liar now, and everybody's going to think I'm a liar now, and you're just freaking out. And so I would say, just having been in law enforcement, and also that I'm a mom, and you get kids who, it just happens, they all want to lie about something.
Yeah.
And to remember, okay, calm down, just think about what happened, and try to just remember that they are human beings. And also, you can feel bad about somebody who did something wrong, but you still have to do your job. So I think that's a balancing act for investigators. I think it's for parents. I remember one time I arrested a guy on the University of Florida baseball team, big, and they perform well in the SEC, so it's a really good baseball team. He had a full ride as a pitcher for the University of Florida baseball team, and we caught him stealing tires off of a truck, and he was stupid enough to put the same tires on his own truck. So somebody was like, those are my tires, and he's like, how do I know? First of all, we had a video of him stealing them. Second, he took them off a truck and put them in his own truck, and so I had to go tell the coach at the University of Florida baseball team that what he did, and that he was about to be arrested for a felony, and he got kicked out of the University of Florida, expelled, never could come back.
Wow.
And so you feel bad because I hated it, but I didn't have a choice. Yeah. So I know investigators have a choice, but I just think sometimes I just think you need to take a step back, and instead of just letting that make you become even more cynical, which cops have to fight against anyway, is do what you got to do to take care of yourself so that you can always maintain humankind in reality and not become so cynical, even worse than cops are normally. And I didn't do the job, so maybe you're not all super cynical.
No. Well, let me follow up with this. So, and I know you didn't do the job, but you were an investigator, so you know this, and you touched something so important about the human element, because sometimes we don't. We just think, well, speaking of human elements, even as an IA investigator, you think to yourself, oh, Marlon, he did this. Yeah. Or there's no way that Marlon would do something like this, right? And so that's that kind of has somewhat of an effect of how you're going to lead your investigation. Do you think that job is to protect cops?
No.
Yeah. Why not?
It's to protect the agency.
Yeah.
And as an attorney, I can see. I knew it then. Everybody knows that. And whether you call it CYA or whatever, you still have to have an all-above-board department that you follow all rules, not some of the rules. And that's one of the reasons. That's one of the problems I have in what I do when I'm helping clients and I'm helping cops. Is okay, you're enforcing rules, but are you always enforcing those rules? You can't pick and choose when you enforce the rules. Just like when we were when I was first starting out, marijuana was legal. And it wasn't up to me to agree whether or not marijuana is illegal. It was illegal, and if I catch it on you, then unless I'm flipping you in the narcotics unit, which we would do, but if I catch in your car and everybody around me knows, or my brother had friends that would smoke marijuana, and you invite me to a party and everybody's smoking marijuana, Like I don't care if you're smoking marijuana, but understand that if you do that around me, you're compromising me and my integrity and my job, my profession. So I may not agree that it should. So it's not about agreeing. Like I heard somebody say recently as cops, like our job is not to agree with the laws. Our job is to enforce the laws. If you don't like the laws, go vote for the people who write the laws.
Yeah, no, very well
so
said.
I think that it's an important part of maintaining a police department that can be trusted, because even when you don't want to, you enforce the rules.
Yeah, totally. I 100% agree with you. When I teach with my partner, James Tacchini, at a Savage Training Group, we do ask the audience, it's mainly sergeants, is your job to protect cops? And you'd be surprised. Some people say yes, some people say no. And for the ones that raise their hand to say yes, well, then turn around and say, well, okay, here's your next case. It's going to be a child molester or, someone who's, doing some really bad stuff. Assault, et cetera, et cetera. And so you got to be careful with how it is that you foresee that assignment. But what I will say, you do protect the integrity and the process. And that's what it's really all about. Other things, too, people don't understand that protecting also comes with knowing your rights. That's protecting the cop. No stone goes unturned. I say that all the time, and that is so true. Don't be lazy, don't cut corners, don't be half-assed because you're not protecting the actual process.
I've said a lot that, and to my own clients, that it's one of the reasons why I think it's so important that cops take care of themselves and maintain an identity outside of being a cop. Because if you start to identify yourself as solely your profession, and it just so happens to be a profession where you have the legal right to take away somebody else's constitutional rights. It's not false imprisonment, it's arrest. It's not battery, it's use of force. I mean, you are allowed to take a life, and that has to be balanced, and that is a very strong power that should never be abused. And so I agree with that you should be able to investigate wrongdoing against cops, because we need to make sure that you never abuse that power. And some of that could be identifying where that's happening too much, and then either getting rid of them or getting the help they need. And a lot of times I do think sometimes it's they need to get the help they need. And then that might come through an IA. So I think it's very important to identify that and remember that. I mean, every cop out there, please take care of yourself, because you are more than your job.
Yeah, no, you got to know your stuff. Let's take a trip down memory lane.
Yeah.
Why don't we? Alachua.
Yeah, Alachua County.
I kept saying Alachua. I don't know why.
Everybody, if you're not,
does everybody say that?
It's like if you,
and where is that at?
It is about 2 hours north of Orlando. In fact, near Orlando, we were just talking with somebody about Orlando. There's another town called Kissimmee that if you're not from Florida, you want to say Kissimmee. So it's just pronounced in different ways. I mean, and it's more of an indigenous type. It's how it originated. But Alachua.
Sworn at the time?
Yes.
How many? If you can recall.
250-ish, I think.
It's not bad. It's
and they had the jail, so all in, I think. And I think now somebody told me it's near 1,000 with the jail.
Okay, so it's grown.
Yeah.
Wow. And they're still undermanned.
Oh, of course.
Like everywhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. 24 June 2000. That happened 24 years ago.
Thank you for saying that.
I know. Well, hey.
No, we were friends. Just kidding. No, if I was still in, I would be able to retire soon.
That's what we talked about.
Yeah.
You would receive probably a 90% pension.
I'd probably go into drop or something like that.
They have a drop program.
Yeah.
LAPD has a drop program too.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. So we lasted there for 4 years.
4.5 long years.
4.5 long years.
Yeah.
From
and
patrol.
Fun years. Yeah. Started out in patrol.
To narco.
Yes.
And the first female SWAT team member.
That's correct. Yeah. I did patrol for about a year, and then they had no females in their narcotics unit, and they had at least half their narcotics. I think people went to the feds or something, so they had a lot of openings, and so I got on quickly with the narcotics unit because they had no females.
Okay.
And I think that's a silly thing to have. You have a bunch of white dudes in your narcotics unit. Like, we didn't even have any people of color. It was just 3 white dudes. And then, so yeah, I was the only female on the narcotics unit for a while. We added another one a little while later. And then 3 months after I made the narcotics unit, I was on the SWAT team.
Did you go to SWAT school and all that stuff?
Our version of it, yeah.
Okay, back then.
Yeah, we have Camp Blanding is a Army Reserve training facility outside it's rural, outside of Alachua County. Every year we would do a week-long SWAT school, and I loved it. I was sort of a problem child for them because there's nowhere for me to stay because the barracks were all dudes. And so we had an
How did that work out?
We had an RV that we had confiscated through a drug investigation, and so I drove my facility to the training.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so, if you had a SWAT call out, how does that work?
Well, I was the only chick on the team, so for regular call outs, we had what we called the bread van with all the equipment, and then we had the armored vehicle.
Bearcat and the whole nine.
Yeah, so I drove the bread van as the only chick. I only ever got to do bread van or perimeter. I got to do one entry, and I found out later that one of the team captains that put me on the entry was verbally berated after that, and I never got another entry team.
Which is a segue to, and I certainly don't want to cut you short of how is it that you, I suppose, developed what you experienced as the only female SWAT, and now you're an attorney defending and representing a lot of clients are female clients. Would that be fair to say?
Actually, because women still only are about 13% of law enforcement across the country, so the majority of my clients are men.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I definitely have female clients. And my most active cases right now are females.
Right, and the reason why I say that is because we have talked about cases where there's some discrimination type of allegations, gender that is, and some harassment, some hostile working environment. And it seems as though at times, and the reason why I bring all this up is because you being the only female SWAT team member, would it be fair to say that you're not the first story that whatever you experienced is out there?
No.
I can tell you here in the state of California,
Right.
It happens quite often where there is division, there's favoritism, and all kinds of sorts of stuff. And, kind of, what was it like? And, what kind of sparked up, for you to become an attorney and practice these type of cases?
Yeah. I loved what I did. Nobody in my family had ever been in law enforcement before. My dad thought I was nuts. Graduated from University of Florida, and a week later I went to police academy because I thought I wanted to do federal law enforcement somehow, and I chose the local route to get there. And I mean, I'd never done a drug in my life. I'd never even seen most drugs in my entire life. And then 1 year into being a cop, I'm on the narcotics unit buying crack for a living. I mean, I'd say for 3 years, the majority of what we did was crack cocaine cases. So very much a different life than I had led. But I believe, I'm a dork. I believe strongly in the rule of law. I believe in right and wrong. I believe in our country and that law enforcement helps keep us safe and all that. And I also loved the physical aspect of it. I wanted a job that I thought would help keep me fit. That if you have to be, like if you're a cop, they make you be fit. Well, we all know that that's not really true.
No, that's not true.
Like donuts are a thing. And so
croissants too.
Yeah, croissants or free Subway or whatever it is. No offense, Subway, but free whatever, dollar sandwiches, whatever it is. And so couldn't believe the life I was living. But then very quickly, seeing the dark sides of human nature that I just never saw really growing up. And so when I made Narcotics, I thought, wow, this is fun, different. And you're young and bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and, haven't been through law enforcement enough to have it start really weighing down on you. But eventually it does. You see all the negative things. The things that bothered me, the stuff were anything with kids. And so when I got on SWAT, and I expected it to be verbally abusive from the get-go, and it wasn't. And I got all the training they did, and I did all of it. And I made SWAT Roundup team, which is an international SWAT competition in Orlando. They still have it every year. Now they have them everywhere. I feel like they're everywhere now. But anyway, I had to beat out some of my own team members to make the SWAT competition team, and I just thought I was getting paid to play. I mean, I knew it was serious. I mean, we'd have SWAT call-outs, and that was very serious. Oh, it just became that over time, like I was always in trouble. Always in trouble. Not just IA type stuff, but just written up for everything. Every mistake I made, I was written up. I got 500 mountain climbers, or I was 2 internal affairs investigations. And did I make a mistake? Sure, but was it, holy cow, guys, leave me alone after a while? Or my SWAT commander telling me 3 different times, the only reason you're on this team is because the captain made me put you on.
And if I may interject,
Yeah.
because I don't want to lose my thought there, is did someone sponsor you? Someone believed in you enough
My captain.
to get you in?
Yeah.
Okay.
I did the tryout, and not a girl tryout. I did the tryout for SWAT team, and I completed the SWAT. I passed.
Yeah, totally.
I'm pretty sure there was 1 or 2 guys that may not have passed it. I don't remember.
Right, and at the time that you were getting written up for all this stuff,
It's when I was on SWAT that I started getting written up all the time.
did you feel as though nobody else was getting written up?
It took, at first, I'm a dork. I mean, like, you're right. I made a mistake. I'll do better. Like, you're right. I made a mistake. I'll do better. And then finally, I'm like, oh, okay. And someday I'm going to have to do better. And then finally, you're like, Jesus, just leave me alone. But really, what really showed me that there was a double standard is I got written up one time for not locking one of the doors on the bread van, which is our SWAT equipment vehicle, in our secure compound. And okay, all right, I didn't lock the door. You're right. I mean, one of the guys was there with me, and we both had keys. But okay, it was my fault.
Okay.
And then about 2 or 3 months later, this was not that long after Columbine, which is an active shooter situation. And back then, they started really training everybody to go in.
Yes.
Triangle
formation.
That was one of the things they didn't do with Columbine is they waited to, So, of course, SWAT team does that kind of stuff anyway, but we would train, and then we would train the rest of the department on active shooter. Like, it doesn't matter, go in, save these kids. So we were in a high school in the summertime in the hood. And I walk out, we were taking a break, and I walk out, and one of my sergeants on Narcotics was also a team captain on SWAT, and he just didn't like me. And I will also say this, like, it's not illegal to just not like somebody. Or to have a jerk for a boss. That's not illegal. But it's illegal if it's because you're female or black or Hispanic or Jewish or hurt or whatever, or over 40. But I walk out, and his back door was open, his trunk was open, and he had AR-15, MP5, grenades, flashbangs, Benelli shotgun, all the ammo for all that, and it's open in the hood. And I like literally look around like, does anybody else see this? Yeah. And nothing. Nobody said a word. Well, I had already been written up for not locking a door in the secure compound. And so finally I went to it ate at me for like 2 weeks. So finally I went to my lieutenant. This is like more than 2 years into being on SWAT team. I went to my lieutenant, who's also SWAT commander, and I kind of told him what happened, but I tried to make it as generic as possible so I didn't want to rat anybody out. It was not about getting that person in trouble. I said, I don't want better treatment. I just want equal treatment.
Right.
And he said, don't make a problem for you where there's not one. And I said, well, don't really understand why you're saying that. But again, I just wanted to say, like, I don't, and he says, you're making a problem for yourself where there's not one. Well, come to find out, 2 weeks later, we executed a search warrant. It was my search warrant. I did the undercover buys with a guy selling me, I can't remember if it was crack or cocaine, but with a rifle sitting right next to him the whole time. So, and it was in the country. So my backup was not close enough to save me if the poop had hit the fan.
Right.
My search warrant, I did the undercover buys, I got the search warrant, I prepped the SWAT team, and then I switched hats and put my SWAT team hat on and drove the bread van behind the assault vehicle, because heaven forbid I get to be on the entry team. I find out 2 weeks later that my whole team in the assault vehicle was calling me a snitch behind my back because our SWAT commander went to the team and told them that I was trying to rat out one of my own teammates. And when I found that out, that was it. I was done.
Yeah.
Like, I realized that nothing I ever did was going to matter. This was after I'd competed on 2 SWAT team competitions where we placed in the top 10 or the top 20 out of 70-something teams from around the world. And I was like, this is it. Nothing I do is ever going to matter. And I'm a firm believer, like, life is too short. I will not put up with this for the rest of my professional life. Because I had met federal investigators through narcotics, and I just knew that me wanting to be aggressive and proactive in the job the way I wanted to be was always gonna happen. And I'm not gonna do this.
Right.
And so I quit. And I went to law school, but I always wanted to help somehow. So fast forward 13 years later, I quit law firm life because I hated it, and started my own firm because what I really wanted to do, in spite of being really upset with all of them, I really wanted to be able to help cops. I believe that when you're going through something like I went through, it weighs on you like significantly negatively, and is bad for your mental health. And I want someone to get the answers. Even if you don't, I'm not saying you have to sue, but if you need to talk to somebody, say, is this right? Is this wrong? Is there something I can do about it? I want to be able to help you with that, and that's what I do now. So fast forward, and I'm very passionate about it because I think they did make bad decisions with me, and I think that's because I was a female. You can do something about it, and I want you to stay on the job. Like, we need you, and I want you to stay on the job.
Yeah, and I suppose somewhere in that decision making, you probably thought to yourself, you know what, I'm not the only one.
No.
This happens.
But you feel alone, and when you're in it, you feel alone.
Absolutely. You're in the island all by yourself.
Yeah.
I get that part. I just feel as though at some point, because we are dealing with the human element, if you will, emotions get in the way, favoritism is in the way, and you know what? We treat people a certain way. I've never understood. And again, even back then, right? You came out in 2000. I came out in 1998. I was in the probationary period in 1999, so we're not that far apart.
Yeah.
Where there is a lot of, I guess the word I can use is sexism. I mean, there is a lot of field training officers and command staff, I suppose, for every level, where they're pretty sexist, where they really feel as though women don't really have a role in law enforcement. So you were probably, I suppose now it's kind of, I don't want to say it's been watered down, but I suppose it's a little bit more acceptable. I guess that's the word I'm looking for.
It's a little more common to have women in some of these roles, but they almost always face the same issues. Whether it's intense, acute, common, frequent, it very much depends on your command staff, because that can change, or you could have a problem sergeant or lieutenant or whomever, and they can get transferred to another department, and then it's not so bad. I definitely think there were some people within my department, had they been in charge, I would have had no problems. And what I also acknowledge is, and I tell people this, you female and ask me, well, do you think we'll have problems if I get on a SWAT team? And my answer is going to be yes. It's apples and oranges, not better than, not worse than. And what I mean is, do I think women can have an important and vital role on a special ops team? Yes. But am I the same as the former Marine on my team that was 275 pounds and could knock over a wall without just thinking about it? Like, of course not. We have different skill sets.
Correct.
And also, I think that men innately want to protect women, or it is just different when a woman is around. And you can't change that, nor should you change that. And so, but you have to consider that when you're looking at your team and skill sets and dynamics. And then I think that, we could have a whole long conversation around like proper leadership and,
how effective
it's the right thing to do. It's not always the easy thing to do, and that could mean calling out your command staff to say you're making a bad decision. You need to go apologize. Well, nobody wants to apologize. So, and that's a whole other podcast. But yeah, it was.
I getcha. You already answered the question that I was going to ask you, because I had a guest who was my mentor come in and goes, man, stop throwing me softballs, man. Come on, throw me a good one. And he's 71 years old, and he was on the job in the late 70s, early 80s. And he was command staff. He was a captain commander in LAPD, and I had to ask him, and I'll ask you. You already touched on it. Is there a double standard?
Yeah, and I think in a lot of different ways. But what do you mean?
What I mean is, well, let's go with you're practicing law now, and you see cases where I'm sure it sticks out.
Yeah.
Where there is a double standard. In other words, someone gets treated in a workplace completely different than someone else.
Yeah. All the time.
Yeah.
Across the country, big and small.
Do you think we will ever learn not to do that? What's your thoughts on that? Because it's 2024.
Yeah.
And I'm sure your caseload is stacked, if you will.
Yep.
And you're working with me and giving me cases.
Yes. Yeah. We have. In fact, I think every time we talk and say, "Oh, I'm getting another one. I'm going to send to you soon," because I use Marlon to as my IA expert for my clients when they're. We just talked about one where they'll sometimes stack IAs to try and get somebody, push somebody out.
Yeah.
I will honestly say, no, I don't think that the issues people have with the differences will go away, but I think that acceptance for how people handle that is much different.
Right.
That our culture now has much less patience for, especially younger people, have much less patience for putting up with something they feel is wrong.
Yeah.
Especially at bigger departments. I mean, one of the first questions I ask anybody that calls me is, "What's the size of your department?" Because if you're at a smaller department, it's much harder. If you're let's take the female example. If you're the only female in a department of 8, like, yes, the spotlight's going to be on you all
100%.
the time.
Yep.
All the time.
Oh, no.
If you're at LAPD, much less.
Completely.
Even at my department, where it's close to 300 sworn, it's not the same as the super small departments.
Yeah.
One of my former SWAT guys is now sheriff at a small county in North Florida, and I think he has 7 deputies for the whole county. And a couple are female, shockingly. But that doesn't surprise me because he is who he is.
And if there's an IA in that agency, guess what? Everybody knows.
Everybody knows.
That's been my experience.
Yeah.
With the small departments,
Everybody
whenever I
knows.
teach.
And
Look,
nobody
man,
is supposed to talk about it.
Yeah. Oh, hey.
But
you know what? You're in the island all alone.
yes,
You're in the dark.
nobody will talk to you.
No one will talk to you.
Right.
And
Right.
you're just like, and guess what? Everybody knows.
Everybody
and whatever
knows. Every
story,
detail.
and
Yeah.
and then that story, by the time it gets to command staff, it's
Yeah.
like a whole different story.
Right. It's like the gossip game that kids do. Yeah.
No, that's true. It's
Yeah.
like, it's like one big kindergarten playground.
Yes. Yes, that is what law enforcement is. One big kindergarten playground. Yeah.
IA story. Look, I know you touched on it in when you were in Narco. Dope money guns. That's what we used to call it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys called it that. That's all I remember. Dope, money, and guns. For whatever reason, when you do dope, those 3 elements always show up.
Yep.
You had allegations made against you for releasing confidential information.
Yes.
That sounds like so serious.
It is.
And the world stopped
Stopped.
completely.
I can remember exactly where I was in my car driving down the road when they called me and said, "You need to come back in. You're being investigated for releasing confidential information." And I literally, it's a miracle I didn't crash in that moment. I had to pull over. I turned around. We have a secretary in our narcotics unit. We called her Mom. And I was freaking out. I mean, I don't know if I was hyperventilating or crying or, she's like, "Bridget, calm down." I was like, and I'm like, "Okay." And they said, "I'm being investigated." And she's like, "Well, Bridget, I can't talk about it," and whether she knew anything about it or not. She's like, "But you got to calm down and come back in and just talk to them and tell them the truth." And I did. I mean, anyway, but yes, I was investigated for releasing confidential information. We had an undercover side of narcotics and a uniformed side of narcotics who they weren't assigned to a zone. They were just, we would work in tandem. So let's say we would do we call buy bust. So I would roll in, buy the crack, and on the bug say, "Looks good," and then I would drive off, and the uniform guys would swoop in and arrest everybody. And it's like ants. Everybody takes off running, and they just scoop everybody up, whatever. Versus a buy walk, which is I buy to get a search warrant, to get into the home, that kind of stuff. Or for whatever reason, you're just gathering evidence. Well, we did a search warrant, and some of the uniform guys were there. So they used me as the dummy. We needed to get the door open. We wanted the guys to answer the door. And so we were in this townhouse
Kind of
unit.
complex?
Complex. And I knock on it there. Hi, my tire's flat. Can I use your phone? And I mean, total.
They let you in?
Yeah, they let me in to use their phone. And then SWAT team swooped in. Oh. Well, one of the uniform guys of that, who was also on SWAT team, so was privy to all the facts of the search warrant.
Okay.
Was in the room when we briefed on the search warrant. Knew all the facts of the drug dealer, the location, everything. Well, it just so happened that when the guy, I wasn't even in charge of investigating, and so he ended up saying, "Well, I know the brother of one of the deputies." Mm-hmm. Like, oh, well, this guy, okay. Well, then later I see that guy, and he's like, well, again, he was privy to all the information. And he says, how'd it go? And I said, wait, he's mentioned, he said he knows your brother. And it didn't even occur to me that I did anything wrong. Well, maybe if I'd been a cop for 15 years and heard of dirty cops who have cops who have family members who are criminals or whatever.
Right.
I was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and there can't possibly be an occasion where somebody's brother is a criminal. Yeah. And so the next day, my sergeant walked in and said, did you tell so-and-so about his brother was mentioned? And I said, well, yeah. And then next thing I know, I got an IA for releasing confidential information. And I'm like, but he's, he had all the, what?
Yeah.
And so part of me thought, well, I should have just lied. I should have just never said that I said that. But that's never me. Right. But yeah, I got the whole IA, the whole thing. And then turns out that guy ended up going to his brother to try and help him.
Oh, got it.
He got let go.
Yeah.
I got a letter in my file. And I wish the letter would have said, you're just naive. But what I say is this, I was already getting written up all the time.
Yeah.
Extra 6 months probation all the time. I mean, I was never off probation on SWAT team. And then I got another IA 3 months after that. Yeah. And then 2 months before I left the sheriff's office, they gave me a day off or something. So it was never ending.
Yeah. So it's would it be fair to say it's their way of let's just stack it against Bridget, and
is this something that
hopefully
occurs?
She'll leave.
Is this something that occurs? Do cops make mistakes? Yes. But it goes back to, do I think, what is IA's job? IA's job is to make sure everybody follows the rules, and the rules apply equally. Yeah. So did I break a rule by saying, maybe I should, I don't know. Certainly it's not, I don't know. Right. But have you subjected every single person who ever has done anything wrong at the sheriff's office, similar to what I just did, to an internal affairs investigation? No. But that resulted in a letter in their file. Yeah. And a very serious charge of releasing confidential information while I was a narcotics investigator.
Oh, no, totally. 100%.
That hurt me later.
If you can recall, how long was the process before it was, because I take it the adjudication was unfounded, not sustained?
No, it felt... I can't remember. It
was a letter
saying that. There's a letter in my file saying it was definitely not
releasing
confidential information.
You're not a leaker.
Better or
you don't leak information.
Right.
Got it. How long did it take you to get that letter?
Gosh,
I'm going with this. 6 months, a year, maybe.
No, they did it pretty quick.
They did it quick.
I would say 3 months. They did it pretty quick.
Would you agree with the punishment? The punishment is not the penalty, but the punishment is the process?
Oh, yes. It is. It's isolating. It's crushing. It's a stigma. I mean, that is in my file forever. I mean, when I tried to get licensed in the state of Florida, I had to pay an attorney to represent me in a hearing so that I could get past that claim.
Oh, so when you did your moral turpitude, is what we call it here, you had to, they questioned that.
I'm licensed in 4 states.
Right.
So that's the only one that did that. But I was very upfront about that too. I mean, any issues, I told them. And so, it is the process that punishes well beyond. And they knew what they were doing. Yeah.
Contrary to the belief of the title of this podcast, one of several reasons, I should say, many reasons that I decided to do this platform is to have this conversation. Because I don't think we do. I don't think people, and by the way, the majority of the audience is police officers. And some are even young. Yeah. And some will go through their career without even getting a letter or going through a whole IA process. And so I really felt it was important to it's important to kind of have a conversation about how it actually feels.
Yeah.
And, I appreciate that. I'm going to play favorite here because you are licensed in 4 states.
Yeah.
Right? So that would be New York.
Yeah.
Florida.
Yes.
Of course, now in Texas.
Yeah.
God's country.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they say. And Louisiana.
Yes.
That's right.
4 bar exams.
4 bar exams.
I did not wave into any of those.
Right. We had that
It was
conversation
torture.
earlier.
It was horrible.
You know what? I call it psychological warfare.
It really is.
It just doesn't make any sense.
It really is.
That's a whole different podcast and conversation.
Yes.
What's it like? Well, let me ask you this. I know you're in Texas, but do you still dabble with cases from other states or?
Because I specialize in employment law, that is based, and I focus on the federal standard, so the federal law. And in order for me to advise or help with EEOC claims, I just need to be licensed in any state. Certainly, I have practiced in each one of those states over time, and certainly I can get involved in, if it goes to a lawsuit, I can personally get involved in those as they proceed to litigation in any of those 4 states. But I tell people all the time, just because you file an EEOC claim does not mean you're going to file a lawsuit. And really what you're wanting to do is, and there are a lot of people out there that either the cynics or because they're scared think, I don't want to report it. I just want to tell the I don't want to tell my department. I just want to tell the EEOC. Well, those go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Because the EEOC will tell your department.
Correct.
And a very first step, and I work with, I specifically help cops to encourage them to stand up and report these things that are happening. Yeah. Because number one, I don't want you to commit suicide over it. And I know that has happened. I talked to a girl who she reported it. It took two years to resolve it, and she attempted suicide 4 times.
Oh.
There are too many reasons and ways that cops get into such an unhealthy mental health condition, and I do not want this to be one of those. And I know from firsthand experience how all-consuming it feels. Yeah. You can't think about it. When I was in that IA, until it was done, I couldn't think about anything else, talk about anything else, or talk to no one about it because nobody at the sheriff's office would talk to me while it was going on. And so, which is horrible. Yeah. And so I can help on the front end. I do help on the front end, and then I partner with the litigators if it gets to that point. And so do I file a lawsuit in New York very often? No. Yeah. Because it's more, and also it's very different because New York has very strong unions, and it's different everywhere.
Yeah, New York is just...
New York, New Jersey, Philly, that
something
whole area.
Else.
Yeah.
But I'm trying not to look over there because...
Yeah, we have a New Yorker.
They got the most complained cop in the state of New York, so we'll get to meet him next.
But I tell people all the time, if you come to me, if you haven't had a complaint, you haven't been a cop long enough, I think. And I mean, if you arrest somebody, sure they're going to, especially if you're in a narcotics unit, well, I'm complaining against so-and-so because you broke down my door. Well, you were selling drugs out of your house, and so the SWAT team came knocking. Yeah. So, what was the question?
Well,
I'm very distracted because I got on my high horse.
That's fine. No,
the 4 states.
We're playing favoritism here. I mean,
so,
we can just agree that God's country is where it's at.
Well, like I said, I'm not from Texas, but I like Texas. I'm from Louisiana.
Well, they're giving you a lot of work in
They
the
are
state
giving
of
me
Texas.
a lot of tech, but you and I are about to work on a North Carolina case.
Yes.
We're about to work on an Illinois case. I think we have.
I love it.
There's one more. I can't remember.
It's okay.
Have you helped me with any of my Minnesota cases? I don't know.
Not yet, but you can load me up.
Yeah.
Please load me up. I would love to help. I'm just as passionate about all this stuff like you.
One of the things I like about you and I are working together is I want you to tell me if, no, IA did a good job.
Yeah.
Because, and I'm not saying IA did a bad job, but I think I definitely have cases where, one out of Texas where chief told the IA to investigate a claim that was about him, the chief, and then he then signed the paperwork to fire her because of the IA, but it was all about a complaint against him. So it was
that's wild.
That is not supposed
in a conversation that they had in his office.
So the chief asked the female, and then making a story short, about if she was still intimate with her husband twice. Yeah. And then she reported that. So then he instructed IA to investigate her for gossiping.
For gossiping to the sergeant.
Yeah.
And he tells the lieutenant, you know what? it's
Go
about
investigate
me.
her.
And by the way, put me on the face sheet.
Yeah.
Which is the same face sheet. We call it face sheet, right? We do the intake,
Yeah.
which is going to be the same part of the investigation where I get to adjudicate and make a decision.
Give me your final report, and then I'll decide if she should be fired. And I decide she should be fired 1 week after she reported it to HR.
Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, Florida.
And that's not unique to the stupid things that happen across the country to this day, where you can be recorded at any time without you knowing it. And it doesn't matter if you're a two-party state. I'm still going to take that recording and share it with their attorney.
Yeah.
Like, I know I might not be able to use this in court, but I need you to hear how this conversation went down.
Wow. Yeah. Worst incident in your career that you can think of? You can give me as an attorney or as an officer.
Well, I can give you lots of different examples from different contexts. I also help officers who have been placed on a Brady list unjustly. And anybody knows, if you don't know, either you're a brand new cop or you're not in law enforcement. It's when they accuse you basically of being a liar and they put you on a list saying you're a liar, and then you can never be a cop again, basically.
Yeah.
And there's no way, you don't have to be notified that you're on the list. Yeah. There's no way for you to get your name off the list.
Yeah, it can't be removed.
And then you can never be a cop again. Now, and I'm going to go back to, you are more than a cop. You are more than your job. But it's really hard when it's snatched away from you. It takes a long time to get over it. I hear the most ridiculous examples, and these cops calling me, men and women, mostly men on that side, because again, there's just not that many female cops still, in tears. Or like one of them, I just paid him to help. He paid me to help him with a little bit of it, and then I did that, and then he wasn't calling me back, and he wasn't answering my emails, and I ended up calling him saying, "I'm going to start Senko calling you if you don't call me back because I'm worried about you." And he ended up sending me an email. "Hi, Bridget, I'm fine. Sorry I made you worry." And I emailed him back. I was like, "I'm going full mom on you right now. Yes, you worried me. Don't do that to me again." So that one breaks my heart when. And there's other examples. It's not just Brady List. When an agency so blatantly goes after somebody and steals their whole career. And I mean, I've talked with 30-year firefighters who are on the phone crying with me because their department is just basically stealing 30 years of their life. And what they always say is it's as though nothing I did ever mattered. And as all humans get into a very bad space if you feel like your whole life has not mattered.
Yeah, totally.
And so, as a deputy sheriff, certainly, an incident where a 2-year-old lost his life because he found a and that was not pleasant to see. I will never, ever forget the shrieking of his mom. Yeah. Ever. Or had that, to find the apartment that they lived in, I had to trace the gray dots on the sidewalk. Wow. I mean, it was,
Interesting how that, and thank you for sharing that. Every time I ask, in this segment of the episode, we tend to reach back to something that's just so unbelievable to a lot of other people because they don't get to see that. And having this conversation as we've had thus far, it only goes to show you, and you can agree to this, I hope, is that mental wellness is at the forefront. I mean,
yes.
We're happy about that, right?
Yeah. Yes. Definitely much more than 24 years ago.
That's my point. And, we don't, I don't think we ever, to your example about the 2-year-old child and all the other examples, when we talk about your worst incident, I don't think back then we ever even had an out.
No. But I can add to that. The day I found out my team was calling me a snitch behind my back. Wow. The day I walked into my captain's office and said, "I can't take this anymore. I want off SWAT and narcotics right now." And he said, and I said, "Oh, and I want day shift." And he said, "You got it. You start next week." And I was not the most senior person. Well, that's not how that works.
Right.
If, you want to come off nights and there's somebody more senior. And he knew, because he had started telling them to leave me alone because he was seeing too many paperwork with my name come through. But to that moment where, and it took me a long time to get over that, of that much effort that I put into it. Because I knew I was different. I knew I'd have to work harder. But to know that nothing I did was ever going to matter, and I didn't see that there would ever be a time where I could be valued as an operator, was really hard. Now, 20 years later, 20
plus.
years later, 20 years since I left the sheriff's office. 20 years ago exactly that I was being called a snitch. Somewhere around now. It was in the summer, I think. And that was really bad for me. I didn't know what to do with the rest of my life. I mean, obviously I figured it out, and that's me. Like I refuse to think like it's never too late to change, and it's never too late to start over. Or so that's very much a part of me for whatever reason. But that was very hard.
Yeah, well, I can tell you from the little that we've known each other, it reflects a lot on your practice, and we definitely need more.
Yeah.
We need more. We don't have many female lawyers, for that matter, that really practice this type of field or this craft, if you will.
Yeah.
Give me something that you're just, God, this is so rewarding. Best achievement.
Well, competing in SWAT competition twice. That was awesome. And the last day of the competition, there's one competition each day, the last one being an obstacle course. And it is brutal. And I saw grown men fall off this course and not be able to finish it. And I finished it twice, but also that our team placed really well in those competitions, and knowing that I was a part of that team. And those were some of the coolest times of my life. Or even training for the SWAT competition, I absolutely loved it. Loved every minute of it. And I mean, graduating from law school, standing up and look. I know you're probably asking me about law enforcement, but I remember, and sometimes I can't even tell the story without becoming emotional, but I mean, I'm of a really great family, mom and dad's side. My parents I don't remember my parents being married, but I have a really loving family on both sides. And I remember standing up at law school graduation and turning around and looking back and seeing my mom and my grandmother and some other family members. When I saw my grandmother, it's like literally that my grandfather who had passed was saying to me, "I'm so proud of you." And he was proud of me for everything.
Yeah.
You know, and like law enforcement, changing my mind, starting law school at age 30, finishing law school, and him saying, like, and he literally was right there saying, "I'm so proud of you." So it's, so throughout my career, I can have different examples.
Yeah, no, totally. And not to one-up you, because I'm not a topper. I'm not that type. But I can share that sentiment.
It's okay.
Just the light bulb hit when you talked about law school graduation, because I myself also was definitely one of the most proudest moments I ever had. And I was in tears on the stage when I saw my family, my daughter, to know the journey, how hard it was. I mean, I transferred from one law school to another, so it took me close to almost 5 years. And you know what, as a single dad, working massive amount of overtime, and working in internal affairs, acting. I remember my boss said, "Hey Marlon, don't think of this as a prosecutorial role." I call I was prosecuting cops in a civil trial setting, and doing all that, and it's just something that God is so to be proud of. So you brought me my memories, and and I definitely can share that sentiment.
Yeah.
Bridget, look, we're almost at the end here. I will, well, let's see. I know how to get a hold of you. How do we get a hold of you? You're at Lady Law Shield.
Yeah, ladylawshield.com, and that's the best way. I mean, if you want to follow me. And I tell people this a lot. You do not always need an attorney, thank goodness.
Yes.
But I want people to follow along with this stuff. I try really hard to put out little snippets of information that you need to know if this is ever happening to you, or if you feel like it's starting to happen to you. What do you do? What's the first, second, third step you should take? And I give little snippets, like shorts. Either it's a short newsletter or it's on social media or whatever. Because this is your employment law tactical training.
Yeah.
And what I mean is you get firearm training over and over and over, so that when you need to use your gun, you can use it without thinking about it. I want this information to be the same for you. I want you to know right away that it's wrong, and I want you to know right away what to do about it. So go to my website. You'll find how you can follow me. What I mean is get the information in little snippets so that you can train your brain to know what to do when you need it.
That's right.
So Lady Law Shield. And, of course, all the other ways. If you need to book a call with me, you can do it there.
Yeah, all that information will be on the episode. Be the smartest in the room.
Yeah.
That's so true. My partner says that a lot when we teach. We're done, almost.
Yeah.
I'll leave the floor up to you to give any advice to anyone who is thinking about becoming a police officer. What advice would you give them?
People who aren't cops yet?
Yeah.
Wow.
Or, you know, someone who's young on the job and, you know, they're going to promote or, you know, they're going to do this, what challenges they face. What do you think? What kind of advice you can give them?
Work out.
Yeah.
Don't be one of those. Don't be one of the ones that I say where you're stressing the structural integrity of your uniform. You must take care of yourself physically, mentally. And it's so easy when you're young. I did it too. They're like, I know the job is bad, but it won't happen to me.
Yeah.
It's going to happen to you. You see too much death, anger, meanness, dirty, filth, whatever, critical incidents, too many dead people one time, whatever. So it's up to you to take care of you. And then from my perspective, I will say that write things down. If you ever think that something's happening to you that shouldn't be happening to you, write it down somewhere, whether it's in a notes app on your phone, because everybody's digital nowadays.
Yeah.
Because you won't remember it the way you remember it right now, 10 years from now or 2 years from now. I'm just saying, write it down, because you never know when you'll need it. And someday, at some point, it will come. It could happen so that someday you're like, crap, this has been happening for 4 years, and I really wish I could remember dates and times and places. And my other thing I'll say is, a lot of times this is not just how you're treated, but how other people aren't being treated. So
good point.
If you get written up for how you mishandled a gun, maybe you legitimately mishandled that gun, but are you the only one that's being written up for it? Well, I know Sergeant Smith did the same, Officer Smith did the same thing, and he never got written up. And I'm saying that is not men versus women. I've seen this happen, men versus men, gender versus gender, race versus race. You got to have a record of it. So write it down and take care of yourself.
Yeah, no, totally. It's great advice. Truxillo is a town in España, in Spain?
Trujillo.
Yeah, Trujillo, right?
It's spelled the way everybody wants to say my name.
XJ.
So in Spain,
the X is
just
silent.
west of, with the J only, just west of Madrid is Trujillo, Spain. And my husband's family, who's from New Orleans and has been immigrated through that way hundreds of years ago. But you pronounce the X and the L's, but it's Truxillo. But everybody wants to say Trujillo.
Yes.
And I understand why. And I live in Texas, so we get a lot of
So
Trujillo.
you go with it.
It depends. Like if in this context, I would correct you
correct
just because you would want to be like putting out an episode where people are like, I can't believe Marlon said her name wrong.
Yeah.
But if it's somebody I don't know, I'm like, whatever.
Yeah.
Or if I don't like you and I think you're being rude and you're like, Miss Trujillo, I'm like, it's Truxillo. Thank you very much. It depends.
Yeah, you know, I've been wanting to call you Trujillo. As you may know, we talked about this. Trujillo is a city in Lima, in Peru.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you're wondering why I'm wearing my soccer jersey from Peru, is because our Independence Day will be this Sunday. Feliz 28 a todos mis peruanos. And God, Bridget, man, thanks for coming down. You and I are going to have a lot to discuss when we talk cases. It's fun. I am so happy that we met through LinkedIn and all these connections, and I look forward to this working relationship.
Yes,
thank you so much for coming.
Me too.
And on that note, like always, please be safe out there, and don't forget to go Code 6. Thank you.